And welcome to Connecting Jewish Grandparents, the Grand Plan podcast, the place where we come together to look at how our lives as grandparents connect to the Torah, Jewish life, really being the best stage of life. And I'm your host, Rabbanit Sharona Hassan. I'm thrilled that you're here. So please like, rate, review, and share. Share this podcast with other grandparents who value their role as grandparents, value Jewish insight, spirituality. All right, let's go. This week's Torah portion is called Korach. But that's not where I'm going to start. I'm actually start with a while ago. A couple months ago, I guess, I was babysitting for my nephews. You might know I'm not actually a grandparent yet. I just know it's the most valuable stage. Anyway, I was watching my nephews, and they're wonderful boys, but they started roughhousing, speaking unkindly to each other. And I thought to myself, I know how to handle the situation. I'm a mother. I'm a teacher. I know what to do. I know how to set them straight. And if you're curious, it went terribly. Like, really terribly. And I thought, oh, let me try again. I was really working with my parent hat on. Let me try teaching them. And then I realized something that you might already know. I am not their Mora, their teacher, and I am not their mother. I am their aunt. That is not a lesser role. It is a different role. And sometimes the greatest gift that we can have, that we can do, is understanding our role and not trying to, I shouldn't say usurp, but take someone's role that isn't ours. All right, I said that was my story a few weeks ago, months ago, really. But let's get to the Torah portion story. Korach. There's not that many Torah portions that are named for people, but Korach is the name of a man. He is the cousin of Moshe, Moses, and Aaron. And one could just be happy that's your family, but, well, Korach became enraged that his job was his job, and that his job was not that of Aaron, of the high priest. He wasn't even one of the priests at all. He was a Levi with an important spiritual role. But instead of appreciating the role that he had in front of him, he became consumed by the role that he did not have, the role that his cousin Aaron, the high priest, had. And this consumption, it wasn't just like, oh man, I wish I had my boss's job. Maybe someday I'll get to my boss's job if I work hard. No, no. I mean, you can open the Torah and see what happened, but Korach tries to overthrow him. He gets a group of 250 people together to try to prove that Aaron should not have his role. And it escalates terrifically or horrendously, depending on how you want to frame that. But the tragedy of what happens that's relevant to us today isn't that Korach wanted to contribute. The tragedy is that he couldn't see the holiness of what he could already give in his position as Levi. So I said it's today's problem. It's not just Korach, where the earth splits open and consumes Korach. It's for you, right here, right now, and me. How often do we do the exact same thing? How often do we compare our role to someone else's and want to take that role for ourselves. How often do we assume that if we had a different position, we'd have a different impact, that we could do more, be greater if we were somebody other than who we are? So that's a big question, kind of a question for everybody in every space, well beyond Korach. But let's talk about grandparents, because that's what we do here in Connecting Jewish Grandparents. Sometimes grandparents might think, if only my children would listen to me, if only I had more influence, if only I could make the decisions, if only I could fix what is happening. But the important truth is that parents and grandparents are not competing for the same role. Should I say that again? I explained it that I'm an aunt and not a mother to those boys. But the role of a grandparent, parents shape daily lives. Grandparents shape perspective. Parents handle homework and bedtime and consequences and schedules and doctor's appointments and all of those details, menu. I could go on a long list of all the things that parents have to do and have to do every day. To say that a grandparent never does a meal menu or a bedtime or a doc's appointment or a schedule is not giving them credit, but making sure that it happens day in and day out, that's parents. Grandparents. Grandparents give continuity, stories, encouragement, a sense of belonging, the opportunity to do the things I named before that parents do, but grandparents get to do them with more tenderness. It's a gift. It's a special moment when you do those things for a parent. Bedtime story again. For a grandparent at bedtime. It's a gift. A child only gets one set of parents, but they also only get, well, not one set of grandparents, two sets of grandparents. And no one else can fill the role of a grandparent. That can't get taken away. The way I started Grand Plan, my inspiration for doing it was there was a program at the preschool where I was working, and we would have we had parents come in for an educational program, and some parents couldn't make it, so the grandparents would come in their place, and it was amazing for all the parents that came to be at this program with their small children, grandchildren. But the parents that were there, they were there holding the next baby down the line or in their gym clothes because they wanted to go work out right before or right after the program. Or they're in their scrubs because they're doctors and heading to work. The parents were holding up so many things well beyond the little humans in the room. But the grandparents, they were just there to be grandparents and not to worry about all of those other details. That was in the moment that I saw the gift of grandparenthood in a way that the rest of the Jewish community, I think, has not yet fully embraced this gift, this moment of time. Because as a grandparent, you're gifted with a longer view. You remind your grandchildren where they came from, whether you say it or you don't. They can see it in you, in the anecdotes you share, in the way you live your life. You can share those family stories. No one else has those treasures of what happened to their parent when they were little, to you when you were little. And then you can offer unconditional encouragement in a tone, in a perspective, from a perspective that a parent simply cannot. You, the grandparent, can be a safe harbor, the safe space during a difficult time. You can model what aging with wisdom looks like. I might do a whole episode on this. I was recently discussing it with one of my cohort alumni from becoming the grandparent you want to be, on understanding what wisdom is, and that wisdom and AI are so diametrically opposed. And the assumption that is, if you ask Gemini, any of the chat bots, a question, you get wisdom. No, you get AI generated data, wisdom, lived experience. That gift, that comes from grandparents. And that comes from only you being the grandparent that you want to be, can be, will be, when you take the time and effort to embrace that role. And I said in the Korach story, it continues to escalate as he tries to take Aaron's position. They bring fire pans and they prove who does and doesn't, and then splits open and swallows his tents and his people and his followers. But all they had to do was say, wait, I am valuable the way I am. The Torah in text and in Midrash recounts that one of the people who's mentioned in the beginning of Korach's followers are going to join and overthrow. Uh, his name is On, and then On isn't mentioned later. So what happened to him? And they explained that his wife said to him, like, On, what are you thinking? Why are you joining this crusade against Aaron and Moshe? It doesn't make any sense. And On is like, oh, yes, it does. Who do they think they are? Korach's right. We're going to follow what Korach says. And they say that his wife then unwrapped her, got him drunk and unwrapped her hair, right? She took off her headscarf like I'm wearing. And so because her hair was unwrapped, nobody would come near the tent. And then when On, I guess, was a little more sober. So because her hair is unwrapped, nobody is coming to her tent and nobody's coming to get On to continue in the rebellion. Then she says to him, On, you understand that if you overthrow Aaron with Korach, then Korach gets to be in charge and you're still going to be On. If Korach's in charge, you're On. If Aaron's in charge, you're On. Just be On. Just be happy to be yourself. And his brilliant wife's wisdom helped him to step away from the rebellion, make a better choice, make the best choice he could be, which was to On himself. It's probably never really thought about be your own person. I could play with this for a while, but instead, I'm going to thank you for coming to today's episode of Connecting Jewish Grandparents. And as I said, like, follow, and share. The work that we're doing in Grand Plan is so valuable, so important, and we are working on growing and sharing it with others in a lot of different ways. But the easiest way is for you. You know other grandparents that need to hear what we're doing here. So please share this episode with others, spread the word about Grand Plan. And if you don't get our weekly emails, I'll put a link in the show notes that you can get the emails, which involves some of what we spoke about here, and then some practical ways for you to be putting into action these Torah messages, how you can lean into our pillars of Grand Plan, that is joyful, intentional connection, and using them to really be the incredible grandparent that your grandchildren give you the opportunity to be. So thank you for joining me this week. You can sponsor this episode, sponsor a future episode, and continue to spread the word. Thank you for joining me.